Good deal. Twitch, YouTube, and everything is connected. Hey, y'all, thanks for joining. Picking back up on this research, trying to finish the results section. This wide-angle lens is looking a little bit blurry. Okay. I think that's about as good as it's going to get. I guess are wide-angle lenses like always blurry around the edge? Maybe that's how they have to be. Okay. Both of both of these factors are independent factors in the preferred model of higher ability, so dropping them as independent factors is one step and is one part of the required minimal modifications. Both of these factors are independent factors in the preferred model of higher ability, so dropping them as independent factors is one part of the required minimal modifications. So Present employment and so like let's see. Knife preference for programming career is modeled using OLS and employment. So this is analysis 8 and 9. The general expectation of a consistent direction of effect is based on the theoretical positive correlation between these variables. Is no threat to any particular theory or finding, but it should be taken into account when strategies for creating change are formed. None of this analysis is particularly causal. range. Okay. So yeah, increasing hireability or increasing So that'll be a table of outcomes. I think the one important finding, is there really anything interesting worth noting here in analysis 8? Like, I don't think so. It just tells us, yeah, it just tells us, like, specifically factors of naive preference for a programming career might inspire a strategy to increase female preference for a programming career. But such a strategy would also need to avoid reducing hireability, or would probably want to be developed in such a way so as to, what a fucking mouthful of bullshit. In such a way so as to, but such a strategy would probably want to be developed in a way that avoids reducing hireability or current employment in the information technology industry. Gender interactions. The logit and probit analysis shows that logit is a better fit, is generally a better fit, but is generally a better fit. Um, oh, thanks for the like. Many factors are cut from these models to avoid singular matrix or excessive quasi-separation. These the problems of singular matrix and quasi separation could also be avoided. Could also be avoided by gathering more samples. With more samples, it is likely that some additional factors would be retained. With more samples, it is likely that some additional factors would be retained. Because they would have a lower p-value, basically. Each industry specifically categorical variables including state of residence, industry of occupation, and gender interacted industry factors. Are they all cut? So is there a single state in here? There are 2 surviving states. Are there any industries? specifically categorical. Tend to fall, tend to be excluded by this selection approach. Of such, only 2 state effects are preserved, and all other factors of the kind just described are eliminated. New factor for New York. A negative effect for the state of New York and a positive effect for the state for Pennsylvania. Dang, have you taken a break all day? I did. What's up, Caden? I did take a break. So my earlier stream, what was that? It was like 10 or 11 a.m. I went for like 3 hours-ish. Then I ate lunch. I played games with my family. I ran like a couple miles, and I went to Target. And then I ate dinner. So I took a big old break in the middle of the day. Thanks for checking on me, though. And I'm only going to be doing probably another half hour here, then grab a shower and movies time. So have y'all seen, let's see, are any of y'all keeping up with The Bachelorette? And then the new Dexter has just been coming out. Okay, so the logit and probit analysis show that logit is generally a better fit. Many factors are cut from these models to avoid a singular matrix or excessive quasi-separation. Gathering additional samples would likely allow singular matrix and quasi-separation to be avoided without needing to cut as many factors. For these reasons, in short, there is reason to think that the logit model is underfit. In short, there are reasons to think that the logit model is underfit. So one potentially important finding should be taken with skepticism, should be noted. So one potentially important finding should be noted with skepticism. The finding is that gender is an important factor in the preferred logit, but naive preference for a programming career is excluded for lack of importance. Excluded due to a lack of significance. Specifically, categorical variables, including state of residence, tend to be excluded by can easily generate a singular matrix specific categorical variables, including state of residence, industry of occupation, and gender Okay, none of that really matters, actually. None of that actually matters. The finding is that gender is an important factor in the preferred logit model, but naive preference for a programming career is excluded to a lack of significance. This could mean this could this could be taken as evidence that there is a gender related issue in the industry this could be taken as evidence that yeah, if you want one interpretation of the finding is that the gender of a person better explains whether they are able to get a job. An incorrect interpretation of this data would be to say that it is like An incorrect interpretation of this data would be to say that it shows that preference for a programming career is unrelated to the ability to obtain a programming career. This interpretation is incorrect because current employment as a programmer includes more than the ability to obtain a programming job. Preference for a programming job is unrelated to the ability to obtain a programming job. This interpretation is incorrect because current employment as a programmer is not is importantly different from current employment as a programmer is importantly different from a function of your ability to get a job. Hey, what are you programming? I'm interested. What are you programming? I like this stuff. So this is LaTeX. I'm currently writing a research paper. It's based on Python data analysis. And so this research paper, the question is, why are there so few female programmers? Particularly in light of the student debt crisis. So with such a huge debt problem, you would think people would be incentivized to pay those debts off, and therefore they would be incentivized to obtain high-paying jobs. And first and foremost among these high-paying jobs is like programming. And women hold most of the debt, so you'd think women would have a high incentive to obtain these sorts of jobs. Moreover, and so then one very rudimentary explanation is, well, they just don't want the jobs. The problem is that my data shows they do want the jobs. That the naive preference for a programming job is insignificantly different between men and women. And so then the question becomes, like, why is there a difference then? If they both want to do the job, like, not like some men and some women, but like at an equal rate, men and women both want to do the job. Why are there so many more men in the industry? So one answer could be historical and exit effects. And so that's what I'm actually about to write up. And so that would explain, even if there was a huge difference in current industrial makeup, that could potentially be fully explained by historic and exit effects. What would not be explained away is the difference in the pipeline, the difference in the education system, and enrollment into coding bootcamps and into computer science programs. Okay. An incorrect interpretation of this data would be to say that it shows that preference for a programming job is unrelated to the ability to obtain a programming job. This interpretation is incorrect because having a programming job is importantly determined by factors other than the ability to obtain such a job. Specifically, exit effects and historical effects are large and important. For any industry, women, so women participate in the labor force at a lower rate than men, invariant to industry, due to a variety of factors, but historical and exit effects are important constituents of that. Let's see. Female participation. The female labor force participation rate is less than the male labor force participation rate in large part for these same reasons. Let's go get that paper. I commented it, but I think I'm going to have to actually use it. Exit effects and historical effects are large and important. Okay. If men and women obtain programming jobs at the same rate, but women leave those jobs at a higher rate, men will make up a larger share of the workers at any given time. If men and women obtain programming jobs at the same rate, but women leave the labor force at a higher rate, then men will make up a larger share of the workers at any given time. Right, okay, so that's part of it. And then the historical thing, if men and women attain programming jobs at the same rate, but there are previously, but few women and many men currently exist in the currently make up the labor of an industry. If men and women obtain programming jobs at the same rate, but few women and many men currently make up the labor of an industry, the share of labor will tend towards an even distribution, but it will not actually be an even distribution. It will not actually be an even distribution until many years have passed, basically. Are you a CS major? No. I have a PhD in economics. Okay, so the question is, the problem is, so the question is, have we seen a trend in female employment in the tech industry? Has it been trending? I talked about the Stack Overflow Hey, thanks for the follow. If you like the video, double tap it, give it some likes. It's how TikTok spreads it around. So this is results, but like I talk about the survey like way before I get to the results. So here's Glassdoor, Burning Glass. Okay, in 2013, the average, that's salary. I want percent female. I want the percent female. Figure 1 provides historic data by gender on computer science degree enrollment, software engineering as a profession, and female graduation from coding boot camps. That's not even well, it's not even well defined what I'm saying there. So here's the figure 1 source. Share of female enrollment. Okay, females among pro devs. Here we go. Females among non-male within USA was 9.1% in 2021, although apples to apples trend data isn't present. So 2017 to 2021, so it's 9.3 non-males to 9.1 non-males. So the non-male thing, like non-males are insignificantly different. It's hard to say with females though, because the thing is Stack Overflow changed how they measure things in 2021. Yo, what are we coding? So this is a LaTeX paper. It's not really coding. I mean, it's kind of coding. I guess some people will say that LaTeX is a programming language. But basically, I'm writing up the research results at this point. So the analysis was done in Python. It's already done. So this was Python data analysis, but now I'm just writing up the results and basically into a white paper. What a weird code to look at and post. I guess so. Okay. Okay, so the female labor force participation rate is less than the male labor force participation rate, in large part for these same reasons. Okay. This interpretation is incorrect because having a programming job is determined by factors other than the ability to obtain such a job. Specifically, exit effects and historical effects are large and important. Programmers have been largely, okay, yeah. About 90%, I'll reference figure one. That was from 2017 to 21. Like reaching back to 2017 is not reaching very far back. This is not Markdown. This is LaTeX. Figure 1 showed that the proportion of men in programming has trended sideways since 2017. The problem is that that is not a very big historical window. Kind of want to go back further than that. So, percent of programmers male, let's say 2005. So let's see, do you have like better than 2021? Do you have like a long time ago? Computing is a male-dominated field, which provides an opportunity to recruit the other 50% of the population, females, to fill the open positions. This work studies gender differences in computing programming based on an hour of code tutorial. Following a pre- and post-test design, males have significantly more previous exposure to computer programming and are significantly more interested in pursuing computer programming. Not according to my data. I mean, previous exposure, yes, but significantly more interested, no. I think this is already has some selection effects then. This is an interesting study to note. I should keep tabs on this. Surveying students in an introductory computing course. Oof, already a problem. Yeah. At what level? Was this in high school or college? Yeah, they're already in college at this point. The leaking problem is worse at the high school level as the field continues to lose the participation and interest of a broad layer of students, especially females. The leaking problem, what does that mean? The field of CS has been defined as the incredible shrinking pipeline. Found that at each stage, the pipeline leaks more for women than it does for men. Yeah, I definitely want to keep tabs on this. Gender differentials, school family influences, and stereotyping of science. Okay. So that's interesting, but I don't think that's really what I want. Yeah. Um, what is this about peak in the 1980s? No. That could have been a local maxima, but that was not a global maxima. I guess it's worth mentioning even if it's a local maxima. Um, yeah. So the 1940s was the global maxima then? This is like the mid 1940s. This is still very early on. What about the 1950s though? I wish I could get like an actual data source instead of just like random articles here and there, you know? Between 30 and 50% of programmers were women in the 1950s, and it was seen as a natural career for them, as evidenced by a 1967 Cosmos. It's like almost 20 years later, right? I feel like there's like a big gap right here. Oh, interesting. So this person is like, when the salaries started increasing, that's when men wanted in. What are you doing? Research. So, like, why are there so few female programmers, basically? Programming is like older than I thought about it. By 1943, almost all people employed as computers were women. This is where I want the data, though. Show me the data. One report said programming requires lots of patience, persistence, and a capacity for. Okay. One report. I don't know if I trust one report, though, right? Any reason why? Why? Yeah, so I am giving a talk at the Southern Economic Association next week on gender equity and coding boot camps. So that is the motivation for the current paper. Uh, like why does the association care about this topic? Like why does anyone care about this topic? Well, one reason is that in a well-functioning economy, we care about something called economic mobility, and it's a sign of economic efficiency. So what economic mobility says is basically you can do whatever you want to do. Like if you want to do something, you're actually able to do it. We often think about income mobility. So this would be like a poor person who doesn't want to be poor anymore is actually able to work their way out of their situation of poverty. But income mobility is just one form of economic mobility. Another is industrial mobility, where it's like, hey, I want to work in this industry, and then you should actually be able to do that. So it turns out that men and women both want to code, but like mostly men code. So why the discrepancy? That's like an important economic question as well as an important like social question and so forth. And then I guess a more rudimentary reason is just like there's a bunch of big companies that want women to work at them. So they're throwing dollars at the problem. So that in and of itself is a motivation to do it. It's like they're not paying me to do it, but they're paying somebody to do it. So they obviously care. This is just like links to more Wikipedia stuff. Where is by 1943, almost all people employed as computers were women. Where's the data? Like, okay. Smith 2013. And it's behind a stupid paywall. Paywalls for the lose. Do you not think coding and software development is so recent that actually the question is VOI? I don't know what you mean. So software development is like decades old. Like we're at least talking like 80s, and then arguably what I'm trying to figure out now is can we go back to the 40s? Because a lot of people want to say like, hey, go back to the 40s, And I'm kind of like, okay, show me the data. And it's like really wishy-washy. It's like, oh, one report said, okay. Given the dearth of historical accounts on the role of women in computing, right? See, that's exactly the problem. Contemporary feminist theory, dude, I don't want contemporary feminist theory. I want data. Cracking the digital ceiling, women in computing around the world. Oh, this is like a book? Okay. Is it going to be like, am I going to actually be able to read it? No. Okay. Void. Yes, bit not in the current sense. The question is void. What the question is void, like, so the question about economic mobility is void? Like, which question is void? Is your question about the 1940s is void? Um, hey, what doing? It's a research paper. So economic mobility is important today, for sure. What went on in the 1940s is not necessarily important. It's just that this particular sentence that I'm trying to write, I want it to be correct. So historical effects matter is the general point. Does it matter if it was in the 1940s or the 70s or the 80s? None of that really matters. But actually, it's like in the more recent past is more important. So this is kind of similar to what you're saying. Superstore. This is kind of similar to what you're saying. So technically, a historical effect is going to be, it's going to be very important. It's going to have a strong influence on your current situation if that historical effect is large and recent. So, like, it really doesn't matter if it happened in the 1940s. But if I'm describing a historical effect, it's usually like considered scholarly to like identify the historical window over which that effect was true, right? So it might be important that this was true in 2017, which I have good data on. Figure one showed that the proportion of men in programming has trended sideways since 2017. The problem is any economic historian is not going to read that and think that I'm making a historical claim. Like, that's so recent that it almost doesn't even count as economic history. Does that make sense? So I'm trying to go back and say, okay, like how far back can we look? Um, and how far back can we look and what has the trend looked like since then? So some people are saying you can look as far back as the 1940s, and almost all people employed as computers were women in the 1940s. Um, and so if that's true, then it's gone from like, let's say 90% women to 90% men, which is a big change that is interesting from a scholarly perspective. Does that make sense? If we look at other people, like more recently in the 70s and 80s, it's a change of like 35% to 5%, which is I would say that's like not as big a deal, right? Because it's like they never were in the majority. Okay, it's gotten like more disproportionate, but arguably like going from 35 to 5 is not even as big. It's like not as big of a change of going 90 to 10. Is that SQL? No, this is LaTeX, which is a typesetting language. So it's kind of like a glorified Microsoft Word or something. Why don't people care about men entering psychology? Um, is psychology even real? um, let's see. Psychology is kind of important. Yeah. Um, learning Azure. Dope. Good luck. Have fun. Why don't people care about men entering psychology? I mean, I would take a step back and say, like, why don't people even care about psychology? Like, do people even care about psychology? So I feel like men within psychology is like a sub discipline, and you wouldn't even care about the sub discipline if you already don't care about the macro discipline, right? Yet people care about women entering STEM. Yeah, so that's like totally apples and oranges. So if you heard the question I said, why don't we take a step back and like say, why do we even care about psychology? There's a big reason to care about not so much STEM. STEM is actually kind of a red herring. It's specifically programming. Programming is not like the rest of STEM. Nursing, programming, very different. And I actually argue that in this paper that STEM is, do I say unhelpful? So I commented it, right? I'm not actually gonna. It sounds too negative, and that's like not a good way to get published. But frankly, the concept of STEM is not. It's not helpful if we want to solve, for example, the debt problem. Pushing more women into nursing, they're not going to make good money. They're already overrepresented. It doesn't improve equity. It actually worsens financial and gender equity. So STEM is a total red herring. Good luck. With all respect, don't see the point. Cool. I mean, like, is debt a problem? Like, do you care about debt though? Underestimating the importance of psychology. I mean, maybe. Like, I have psychological variables in here. Like, psychology matters. Um, as a science, it's kind of crummy though. Like, okay, you have some effects that matter. IQ matters, but there's like a whole bunch of other stuff that matters a whole lot more. Thanks for the luck. I appreciate it. Okay. Um, I don't think I can trust the 1940s thing because I'm not going to reference feminist literature where they don't actually cite data. The book, maybe if I read the book, I would trust it. So 1940s, is there anything in the 1940s I can trust? I don't know. Okay, here were some women doing this project, cool, but I want like industry data. What about the 1950s? Grace Hopper, all right, she's cool. Um, and then 60s, 70s, and 80s, we finally have good data, but it's definitely less than half by that point. See, this is timeline.com. History.com, I feel like I can cite them. They're actually a source that I can cite. Um, so where's the data? History.com. Indiana.edu. Okay, so this is like an actual scholar, maybe. Of the historical research that I've done, none has attracted as much attention as the work I've done on gender and computing. Um, my first book is a labor in social history. One of the surprising conclusions, not widely accepted but at the time novel, is that computer work was initially gendered female, meaning not widely accepted but at the time novel. Well, so what's the commonly accepted view? Over the course of the 1960s, remarkable sex change occurred. Um, do you have any like data, bro? Like, good job writing a thing, but where's the data? Okay. Mendel confidently declared, anyone with aptitude, male or female, college educated or not, could succeed. That's cool. That's kind of like the modern view, isn't it? Oh, Superstore still here. I thought he bounced. He or she. Comparing tech in 1940, equality and mobility, even data, will never provide any useful data. Yeah, the point is not like to just compare it to 1940. The point is to look at the trend. So, like, trends matter. And a trend that's been going on since 1940 is a lot more impressive and important than a trend that's been going on since 2017. So that's the point of trying to look like does history matter? History kind of matters, right? So we're trying to understand like how far back does this trend go? Does it go back to 1940? Does it go back to 1970? You can kind of wave your hands and go like either way, it's like a long-term trend, but yeah, it kind of doesn't matter if it's 1940 or 1970, but you still want to make the correct statement. Like you don't want to say it's 1970 if it's 1940, right? And then it definitely matters if it's 1940 versus if it's 2017, like for sure. Okay, it would be easy to dismiss the computer girls as a fluff piece. Yep. But underneath gives insight into gender dynamics. He's really focused on this one article, isn't he? It reflects very accurately the confusing and often contradictory messages about the proper role of women. First government statistics. Okay, here we go. Do not appear until 1970, when it was calculated that 22.5% of all programmers were women. Got it. So that's when we have like the first data. So let's just say that anything before the first government statistics is sus. First of all, I'm sus on government statistics, so I don't know if I'm confident about that statement. But even in that case, we've gone from 22.5% female to like under 10. So the trend is still down. But it's down over the course of what, 50 years? So it's not like rapidly down. And basically in 20, like recently it's been totally sideways. Right? So since 2017, it's not even down since 2017. It's just horizontal. But from 1970, it's down. And so this gives plausibility to the fact that it was even higher before that. Okay, so specifically exit effects and historical effects are large and important. Going back to as far back as 1970, like programmers were mostly male, right? Exit effects and historical effects are large and important. As far back as 1970, let me rephrase that. In 1970, enumerating full-time programmers. Is this going to be some like source that's super hard to find? Because that's going to be really annoying. This is just like stories of all like a bunch of different projects, which is not, I don't want anecdotes, I want data. Women pioneered programming. Okay, where's the data? Enumerating full-time programmers, Richard Weaver. Okay, this looks, here we have an actual source. Good gracious. Association for Computing Machinery. Cool. Data from the 1970 Census and Department of Labor's area wage survey used to derive estimates of the number of full-time programmers employed during the years 1969 through 73. Figure is considerably less than suggested in earlier reports. It's recommended that educational administrators consider whether the many courses aimed at training programmers are justified on a vocational basis. Okay. Cool. Oh, get access. Like I don't have access to this? All right, come on. You're going to give me access. React is whack. Who is this? Do you program? I am pieces. All right, so here is the actual paper. Enumerating full-time programmers. Paywalls for the lose, right? But a lot of people don't know this just because it's partly behind a paywall is part of it. Male, female, all right? 1970 census breakdown of programmers. Cool. So 36.4 out of 161.3. 36.4 out of 161.3. Yeah, 22.5. Great. So this is consistent with what the this guy said. So this guy's like an actual researcher. Good job, guy. I'm not going to cite this though. I'm not going to cite this. Not going to cite any of this. I'm going to cite the actual this. Get the Bibtex. Bibtex is the citation format for LaTeX. Boom, here's the bib file. All right. So this is 1970 census data, if I'm not mistaken. Yep. Census data from 1970 shows that the proportion that programmers at the time what did it call them? Yeah, programmers. They're even called programmers. Census data from 1970 shows that females made up about 22.5% of programmers. Okay. Census data from 1970 shows that females made up about, okay. As described in Fig 1, Figure 1 showed that the proportion of men in programming has trended sideways since 2017. Trended sideways since 2017 at about 90%. Okay, so this represents like hello, I'm looking to break into tech. Currently, I don't have a job going to school full-time. I don't have a job going to school full-time for CS. I want to know, would it be better to finish the degree or to go to boot camp? Degree will take me 3 years, though. Yeah, if you can knock out a boot camp and land a job, that'd be sick. So I don't think like never get a degree. I don't think that's the right attitude. I think the question is, when do you get the degree? So check this out. Your return on investment to your educational spending is going to be better if you can get your employer to subsidize your degree. So I don't know if you know this, but your employer will pay, like, depending on the employer, will pay as much as 100% of your degree. And as little as like $5,000 a year, I think, is like less than $5,000 a year is kind of like non-standardly bad benefits in the U.S. That's an important question too. Are you based in the U.S.? So assuming that you're a U.S. person, degree will take you 3 years. I kind of like the answer. Yes, CA. Oh, Cali, gotcha. Oh, you're in Cali, for sure. I kind of like the answer of do both, but then I get that that's also really hard. If you could knock out like a boot camp during summer school 1 year, that's probably what I would do. So here's the question. Do you have a job right now? I think do both if you can. Like me, I worked during college. I realize it's hard. Like I've been there. I realize it's hard. So I don't think it's for everyone, but if you can do both, do both. If you're like, dude, I cannot do both. That's an interesting question. If you can't work and study at the same time, I wonder if like a boot camp is going to be good for you either. Do you take summers off? Maybe you could cram a summer school into, maybe you could cram a boot camp into summer school. I think that could be something you could try. Okay, census data from 1970. And you can also like ping me offline. I probably will do boot camp and still take classes. Bet. I think that's smart. You could do like a reduced, go like part-time for a semester or two if you want to, right? Something like that maybe. Thank you for your advice. Very welcome. Good luck. Let me know how it goes. And if you want me to, like I do always recommend boot camps. The one that I really like is App Academy. But they are pretty expensive though. So 16 weeks, 4 months. So that's gonna, and that's if it's full time. So 24 weeks is like 6 months. So that's not gonna fit in your summer school, right? that's not going to fit in your summer school. I can, if you want to like ping me, I can maybe develop you like a custom curriculum. Or you can do part-time college, part-time boot camp. It's kind of wonky, but you can do that. I think what you really want to do is get the job programming and then let them pay for you to get your degree after you get the job full-time programming. What do you think about Learning Fuse? I don't know. Let me check it out. Learning Fuse. Technical school in Irvine. So this is how you determine. So I have written research on this, right? So you go to course report, browse, and then you browse schools. Basically this Learning Fuse is a no. Oh, actually really high rating, 4.98. Let me check my paper. Okay, Google Scholar. That's a really good rating, but they just don't have a lot of reviews, I think. So the paper is Hireability and Educational Prestige, where I define the role for a high prestige boot camp. Let's open that PDF. This is free. You can go like check out the paper. The rule is in the conclusion. It's like one of the first lines in the conclusion. 4.25 or better and a minimum of 400 reviews. So this, yeah, the rating is good. It just doesn't have a lot of reviews. What are they? Let's take a look at them though. So I would recommend App Academy over these guys. But let's look at their curriculum and their price as well. Web dev. Okay. Are you paying for prep? 2-week part-time and prep, okay. Where's the price? Courses. Let's do web dev part-time. Let's say you're gonna do part-time. Ew, I don't, look at this. This is not a good sign. You see that apply now button? You see that apply now button? Some bad design right there. Academic prestige matters, LOL. Don't really get the LOL there. Like statistically it does. If you want to talk about your odds of getting hired on a particular interview, like prestige is important. Sometimes people say LOL and I'm just like, what's funny? Like, I just don't get it sometimes. Okay, so here we get into the prices. $4,000, right? Module, $4,000. The program is broken into 3 modules of 12 weeks each, and it's $4,000 for a module. So it's basically like 12 or 13 grand. Do they have like deferred payment? You get a loan through Ascent. Okay. And do they have a guarantee? I would not recommend this one, man. Honestly, I wouldn't. So App Academy is going to be a more prestigious boot camp. I think they're going to do full stack instead of web dev. So full stack is going to give you more job opportunities. let's see. I recommend web dev as like a first step too, so I'm not knocking it. But if you're doing a boot camp, they should be able to get you full stack. Yeah. So App Academy is going to do full stack. You're going to have more. Would App Academy be better for web dev? They're going to teach you how to be a full stack web developer. So that's better in the sense that you're going to qualify for more jobs. Web dev, if it says web dev, will often mean, and I didn't really get into the nitty gritty of their curriculum, but let's see if it's full stack. It'll often mean just the front end. Oh no, they say full stack web development. Look at that. Okay, so is it Node or Python? Node. Okay, they're teaching you Node. No, that's cool. That's cool. So it is full stack web dev. Let's say that the skills are equal. I'm sus on saying that though, because App Academy is like way more reviews. Here, check this out. 498234, and then App Academy. But there's a really good reason, and I'm going to get to it in a second. There's a really good reason that I'm going to stick with App Academy. So 466, but over 1,000 reviews. Let's say the skills are equal. Really, I think App Academy is going to have better skills, but let's say the skills are equal. And the timeline is similar. 3 modules of 12 weeks each. So that's 36 weeks. It's part-time. Okay. So 36 weeks versus 24 weeks. It's kind of up to your judgment how you want to weigh the time. The 12, 13 grand is much cheaper, I think. Let's double check. But I think App Academy is more expensive. All right, so here's the thing. The ISA is one of 2 really big reasons I'm going to stick with App Academy. Pay only after you get a job. Pay only after you get a job. Are you seeing that? So Learning Fuse, the reason that I'm not a big fan is it looks like you're going to have to pay even if you don't get a job. And that would be some bullshit. So App Academy is pay only if you get a job, then 15% of income for 3 years, max of 31K. So it could end up being more pricey, but maybe not. It depends on like how much you're earning. That's like a nice problem to have, right? If you're like, dude, I'm getting 100 grand a year. Cool, right? Like that's a nice problem to have. Do I need to qualify for the pay later option? I'm not sure. Like I think they'll give it to anybody, but I think you do need to qualify to get into the boot camp. So one is pay only after you get a job, and the other is the job guarantee. They have a job guarantee. I guess that's the same thing. So it's deferred payment and a job guarantee. Those are 2 different things, and they kind of like stick them together in this ISA description. But those are 2 really great features. You're guaranteed to get a job. If you don't get a job, you don't pay, and you don't have to pay until after you get that job. Which makes it much less of a burden, I think. Okay, that was a cool distraction. I got like 5 more minutes. So census data from 1970 shows that females made up about 22.5% of programmers. Figure 1 showed that the proportion of men in programming has trended sideways since 2017 at about 90%. If the, a perfect hiring process would not lead to, like, given these priors, a perfect hiring process would need given these priors, it would take time. It's going to take time to get to an even distribution. Given these historical facts, an optimal current hiring process may not correlate to, how can I say this correctly? Thanks again for your help. Sorry for the distraction. Hey, no problem. It's a good distraction to have. Glad you're here. So this is like a macroeconomic argument, but this is survey level microdata. So given these historical facts, so given these historical facts, like gender is, given these historical facts, gender is already an important factor. This historical context shows that gender is an important explanation without is an important explanation these historical facts. These historical facts make gender an important explanatory. These historical facts mean that male identification will positively correlate with male identification These historical facts allow for male identification to correlate with holding a programming job, even if okay, even if the current, These historical facts allow for male identification to correlate with holding a programming job, even if current males are less qualified. Ew, that feels like that's worded poorly. Even if the current hiring process onboards men and women at the same rate. These historical facts allow for male identification to correlate with holding a programming job, even if the current hiring process onboards men and women at the same rate. And the other, further, even if men and women even if men and women are hired in proportion to their application rate. Further, even if men and women are hired proportionally, but women leave disproportionately, men will eventually dominate the labor pool. One might take women leaving disproportionately as an industrial problem, but this is a fact across industries. Let's break it there. One might take women leaving disproportionately as an industrial problem, but this is a fact across industries, and this is where this one comes in. Rich and poor married moms are more likely to stay at home with the kids, but for entirely different reasons. So women tend to leave the labor force disproportionately, in part for reasons, women tend to leave the labor force disproportionately for a variety of reasons. Some reasons, such as a need to care for children, might be taken as involuntary. Not really, right? It's still not involuntary. It's ecologically it's ecologically rational. It's not really involuntary. It's just not ideal either. Are you going to be up a little while longer? Okay, I'm planning to be done in the next 5. Did I, or will I? Yeah. Might take women leaving disproportionately as an industrial problem, but this is a fact across industries. This is like poorly phrased. Women do exit industry. At a higher rate than men across industries. This might be taken as an women do exit industry at a higher rate than men across industries. In American culture, %. Okay, so percent, that's what I'm looking for. More than half of women who have a child, yep. thought I saw like 30 or something. And just over a third. Okay, that's why I couldn't find the keyword percent. 46% of mothers. Women do exit industry at a higher rate than men across industries. The need to care for children is an important factor. Is an important factor. Of the decision to stay at home for American women. Women do exit industry at a higher rate than men across industries. The need to care for children is an important factor of the decision to stay at home for American women. Where's the citations on this? So we're at 22. We're at 22. So here's 22. 22. Women do exit industry at a higher rate than men across industries. The need to care for children is an important factor of the decision to stay at home for American women. Wealthy women decide to stay at home more frequently. One source shows wealthy women decide to stay at home more frequently than do either lower income or middle income women. Women do exit industry at a higher because programming is a lucrative field. Female programmers will tend to have higher personal earnings, and also, okay, so it's not just because it's a lucrative field, it's also because of, what is this word? Assortive mating. Because programming is a lucrative field, and Americans currently engage in a pattern of assortive mating. Because programming is a lucrative field and Americans currently engage in a pattern of assortive mating, female programmers will tend to have higher personal and household earnings. This might lead to higher high industrial exit. As a result, even with equitable hiring practices, male, like, comparative a high share of male labor could be fully explained by historical and exit effects. Okay, we'll pause it there for now. Thanks for joining. Talk to you later.